up, everyone? Welcome to the J and J Power Hour. Now, I know what you're saying. There's an extra letter that should be added for this episode. We have an A with us because, as you see on the screen below, there's 3 of us this week. So before we introduce our special guest, JPJ, how you doing, my friend? I'm sure you're excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I'm doing really well. The last week has been fun. Some good wrestling over the weekend to watch. It's just been good. Work's a little crazy, but I'm used to it by now. But I'm excited to have Astrid here, and I'm excited to chat about our topic this evening. I know you and I have been pining to talk about an episode about this topic for a while, so I'm excited to dive on in.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be a lot of fun. I went back to work yesterday at time of recording. Boom, boom, boom.
I was gonna say
My legs were like jelly when I got home from work yesterday. I can tell you that. I was like, oh man, I put on a little bit of weight because all I did was sit around and eat food for 4 weeks. So I'm like, oh man, I need to get moving again because my ass has got a wedding to go to next month. So I'm like, I need to make sure I fit into these clothes because I didn't spend all this money on clothes to not fit in it properly. So, and my sister will be pissed if I go to her wedding and she's like, what are you looking a little chunky for? Because she'll call me out. My sister's like that. That's how my and sister's relationship is. We're just very like that. She'll be like, you've put on weight, lose it. And I'll be like, thank you, I needed that. But I digress. We do have a special guest. So please introduce yourself, Astrid, to you. I'm sure people know who you are. If they know who we are, we're all associated with Love Wrestling. But introduce yourself to our wonderful listeners.
I'm Astrid. I am from Puerto Rico. I actually live in Orlando, Florida, the home of NXT, as we call it. Aside from liking wrestling, we all know we all have that in common. I love music a lot, and I love watching horror movies a lot and things like that. And reviewing books is another thing that I do online a lot. But music has always been like a huge part of my life, so that's why I'm really excited about the topic today. And it's been one of those things that it has helped me through so many phases of my life. So I know like my music taste is probably going to reflect that as well. So it'll be exciting to talk about it today.
Yeah, no, we're talking about music today. We'll get into the topic in just a second, but like I said, music is just it's a very powerful thing. Music can get you through. I don't think there's any situation that isn't improved or at least celebrated upon with the added tone of music. I mean, music is just so powerful like that. But before we get into music talk, Astrid, you're a big fan of wrestling. You do a lot of stuff on Love Wrestling, which obviously myself and JPJ are part of. But there's something I've noticed with you in the last, I don't know, month or so with Love Wrestling. You started Astrid Asks, which is your interview series. Are you primarily focusing on women of wrestling? I want to say you are.
Yeah, that's gonna be like my primary focus. Anything like female, I would say like female talent, because I don't mind like interview like managers, referees, anything like that, as long as they're involved in wrestling somehow.
Yeah, so you got that going on. You also hosted like a Knockouts Knockdown review show. You had Ella, and you had another guest, and I am blanking. Mel, sorry, my bad. Sorry, Mel. But you had those to talk about like I think it's really important that, there's a lot of wrestling podcasts and a lot of wrestling content, but like wrestling, for the most part, it's probably more skews in the side of like male hosts. So I think it's important to kind of have not only people covering women's wrestling, but women covering women's wrestling because, listen, I love women's wrestling. I'm a proud person. It's like, yes, I'll focus on women's wrestling, but there's only so much I can go with like relating to what it feels like. I don't know what it feels like to be a woman. I don't understand that. But like, I think it's important to have someone like yourself to like host shows that are about women's wrestling and proudly kind of be like, hey, this is a thing as well on this side of the content things. It's like to have women in the field. Do you think that's an important thing and a kind of thing that you can wave your flag for, to be like, hey, let's get more women involved with wrestling content or content in general, I guess?
Oh yeah, definitely. Since I started Love Wrestling, I feel like I had like a list of things that I wanted to do. I wanted to do the writing part because I'm a writer more first and foremost. I wanted to do the hosting, I wanted to do producing, and I wanted to learn a little bit of everything. And then when they announced the Knockout Snackdown, I thought there has to be a react show done by women on the show because it's an all women's pay-per-view. So I asked Spencer and I said, please tell me this is the first all women's react show because I'm willing to do it. Like I'm willing to host it. And he's like, yeah, just go for it. So It was tough finding people. That was the only part that was challenging. I was stressing out and getting anxiety and everything, thinking of like finding people to host with me or like co-host with me. But once I found them, I just like it'll flow so well. And it was so important to me to be able to do this. Like I cried after the show, after we went off the air. I had Ed, who was producing for me that night. I had him come up on the screen, and I literally cried. I looked at my phone and seen the tweets from everybody and the Slack chat as well. I was like, I can't do it. I'm shaking and crying. It meant so much to me to be able to do it, not only like as a woman, but as a Hispanic woman, because I feel like we don't get a lot of representation. I feel like now it's improving a little bit, but it's just nice to be able to like, this is me, and like I like women's wrestling, and I want to talk about it with other women, and I think it should be done more often. And that's why I'm like, I wanted to do it so much. And yeah, I'm like, I have a list of things that I'm like adding up as I do them, and I'm like, I want to do this, and it was so exciting to be able to do it. I told my family like, yeah, I did one of the things on my list. I used my voice somehow. I've always been shy about my voice and my accent. I've always been like not confident about it. And seeing like the feedback from everybody, it meant so much to me, especially that night. I'm like, I need to relax after this, because I was shaking still and crying after it happened. But it meant the world to me.
Yeah, I think we can. I'll let JPG add, but I mean, I know from I was watching it I didn't watch all of it. I popped in and I watched it for like 15 minutes of your show, and I'm like, oh, this is really good to see Astrid do something else, and not only that, you seem pretty. I mean, you were shaking and nervous, but you seem pretty confident and natural to me. So I was like, all right, well, you've been doing this for a while, obviously, but you haven't. But you know what I mean. But JPJ, anything you want to add to what Astrid was just speaking about?
Yeah, I mean, Astrid and I worked together on the NXT review show. So, I kind of knew early on. She had been new to our group. She was added on, and when I needed someone to kind of fill in, when my original co-host kind of had to deal with some stuff, she was one of the ones that I was like, oh, she's newer. Like, we don't have a ton of females in the Love Wrestling bubble, and I was like, I would like someone new, someone different to be a part of the shows. So I reached out to her like almost immediately, and I was like, hey, this is what we're doing. I at least want to have you on one of the shows. And she was awesome from episode 1. So like when I saw the Knockouts review and how great she was and how good the show was, like it didn't shock me because I had worked with her. I miss working with her.
Yeah.
So I'm actually excited about this, and I think, she might be hopping on some stuff with me soon. But yeah, like you said, like it didn't shock me that she killed it. It did not shock me because she's been good for a while, even though she's new at this, But yeah, it's just awesome. I'm glad she's getting more comfortable. I'm glad she's doing more things. Like you, Astrid, I say she right here, you are going to be a big part of what we do over at Love Wrestling. And I'm glad you're kind of getting more confident and doing the thing and doing things you want to do. You know what I mean? Like that's part of it too. It's like, hey, I'll hop on here, I'll help here, but this is an idea that I want to do. And when you start doing stuff like that, the passion comes out of you more and more and more, and you start really getting into your wheelhouse. So I'm excited to see like what's coming from you too. So yeah.
Thank you.
So enough blowing smoke up Astrid's ass. Enough of that.
I know, ego up the wazoo.
Let's get into today's topic. We're talking music. We're talking artists or bands, just music in general, that kind of defined our lives. Going through our whole lives and going through, I'm sure I can pretty confidently say for most people, but at least for us three, music has been a part of our life in some way, shape, or form since the moment we came out of the womb. Like, it's just a thing. Music is just a natural part of life. Even as a small child, you listen to children's music and the music you watch kids shows, by the way. I don't know. I don't watch a lot of children's programs, but like when you see it, music is such a big part of little kids shows because it's so like inviting. Like it's such an inviting thing to add music to this. And as you grow up, like there's music involved in everything. Movies is an essential part of movies is music and the soundtrack, and essential part of video games is the video game score and like the soundtrack to a video game. So, TV, everything has music involved in it in some way. So I thought this was it's quite a broad subject, but it's also just something like gets your wheels spinning. We all said in this pre-chat that we're kind of like, oh man, how do we condense this down and be like, this is what's kind of defined my life over the time. But it is pretty crazy to think how special music is. Before we get to the actual music that's actually genuinely, defined our lives, what does music mean to you? Astrid, you're the guest. I'll let you go first. When I say what does music mean to you, what kind of comes to your brain?
Honestly, I keep thinking like I have a lot of anxiety, so sometimes even the music helps me like not think about things like I should. I tend to overthink things and overanalyze everything, and I feel like the music does help me. Like even when I'm driving, I like listening to music, and I feel like I'm not even driving, like I'm on cloud nine, just
Mhm.
singing by myself, and it's a good way to get distracted and to like get kind of pull myself out of reality for a little bit and not think about things that I don't want to think about
Yeah.
or negative things. I'd rather like focus on what I'm listening to. And I do the same thing with like audiobooks, for example. It's a good way for me to like transport myself and go somewhere else that I'm not at the moment.
Yeah, it's a good distraction, really, is what um I notice with music too, it's a good distraction. JPJ, what about for you? What does music mean to you?
I mean, it's basically, as corny as it sounds, it's basically the soundtrack of life, right? Like, so like, you know, I have music for every mood that I'm feeling. I think most of us probably do.
Mhm.
When you're angry and you want to listen to angry music, you can listen to angry music. I got plenty of that. When you're angry and you don't want to be angry anymore, you listen to happy, So, there's different when you're sad. It's all of it. It's
I
all of
mean,
it.
when
You know
you're
what I mean?
sad,
So
there's
like
nothing better than listening to sad music when you're sad and just having a good
100%.
cry. It's the best thing
Yeah,
in the world.
100%. 100%. And when we dive into it, a couple of these artists that I'm going to be talking about, a couple of them were in those I call it sad boy years, like
Mhm.
17 to 21, figuring out life, figuring out everything. Like, yeah, there's music for every part of your life. Like any mood, any significant thing that happens, like you can put on a song to either make you go through the emotions that you need to go through, or you can put on a song or a band or whatever to
Mhm.
change the mood. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So music has been literally a soundtrack for me. Like I remember big time breakups or big time sad moments or happy moments where the first thing I want to do is when I get in the car, like Ashford said, is I want to put on a tune and I'm going to have a concert by myself in my car driving
Oh,
home or doing
in the
whatever.
shower,
And
that's my favorite.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, shower
Um,
singer.
yeah, man, I could say music is everything, kind of,
It really is.
So
There's
yeah.
there's not a lot on the planet that I truly love more than professional wrestling. Music is probably one of those things. There's only a very small group of things that I love more than wrestling. And not only that, that has stuck with me my whole life. Pretty much my whole life I've been watching wrestling. Music has outdone that. Music has been there for me since, and especially when it's so cool when I go through my brain of like, oh, what defined my life? It's like to see yourself and to actually go back and go, oh, when I was a kid, I used to listen to this, and then when I was a teenager, my music taste changed, and then when I became like into my 20s, my music taste changed, and even to now, like my music has changed from even when I was in my early 20s. It's so weird to go through all that and be like, oh wow, like my music taste has really changed, and a lot of things that I used to love, I now don't personally love anymore, and I think
Mm.
but that's an important thing. Some people are so attached to what they were when they were like, oh, I used to love this when I was 10 or 11 and 12, and then you listen to it now and you're like, oh, I don't like this anymore. But that's like, it's called evolving. It's one of the
Mhm.
coolest things. But then there's also those things that stick with you for your whole life, and you're like, I love this as much now as I did when I first listened to this. And I think that's also important. So it's kind of cool. I'm literally just going to say my first one now because it's not going to surprise anybody with how much I rant about these people on freaking Twitter because I love them so much. But I think Astrid's the same because we're very similar in this respect. My favorite band that's like been with me since I think I first listened to them when I was about 13, 14. So you're starting all that time of life, you're a rebellious teenager, you're going through all these years, you want to, I don't want to listen to the stuff that's just on the radio anymore. I don't want to put in compilation CDs and just listen to all the pop music. I want to listen to something cool. The first band that I really ever remember discovering was Paramore. And I don't think that's any surprise to anybody of how much I adore Paramore. They're my number one favorite band ever. And because I think the reason for me is that they've grown up as a band as I've grown up, and I'm kind of in the same kind of age bracket nearly. They're a little older than me, but like that every time they release a new record, it's like I'm moving in my life. Like when I was 13, 14 listening to Misery Business and even their first album, All We Know Is Falling, like that was the age that was just kind of, I was like, yeah, this is hardcore, this is rock music. Like I was like discovering all that. And then as they release more albums, it's like they grow up with music and their music style changes kind of gradually. And like I'm ready for that next move. And then, you know, going into like my favorite album of theirs, which is the self-titled album, which is Paramore, that came out in 2013. So I was just finishing high school. I was ready for the next chapter of my life, and their music was changing and I was changing with it. And then when After Laughter came out in 2017, I was in my early 20s. I was ready for something very new. My music style had changed so much. Instead of just being like, give me all the friggin' riffs and everything in the world, I was like, I want a little bit more, something a little bit more complex. And I was just starting to discover older music, and they influenced a lot of the 80s from that album. And I was ready to evolve with music, and they've just kind of evolved at the same time I'm ready to evolve. So I think that's why they'll probably always stick with me, and they'll always be my number one. So I don't think that's going to surprise anybody. But also, I'll say this pretty confidently. I've never met a person that hates Paramore. So like everyone, I've heard people say I don't love them, but I've never been like that. I passionately hate Paramore. They're pretty universal. Yeah, they're pretty universally liked by a lot. And they're never, favorite thing about Paramore is that they never release a song that sounds the same, which is, I think, important. Some people are like, they change too much. I'm like, but so does every band. So if you stick to the same thing, you'll become very bland and very boring very fast. And there's a lot of bands that have done that. So Paramore is my number one. I'm sorry I stole it from you, Astrid, but you can still say Paramore. If you want to piggyback off me, go ahead.
Yeah, you definitely stole like the reason why for me the same. Like I remember in high school, one of my friends started introducing me to alternative music, and Paramore was one of the first bands she ever like introduced me to, and it was always Riot, the Riot album. That was the first one for me, and I'm like, I love this. I love how it sounds. I just want to keep listening to it, and I feel like the same. Like I feel like I grew up as they grew up, and that's how I feel like even the songs, even though I haven't been through obviously the same stuff they have been through, you connect with the message they have, because like still into you thinking about songs like that. I'm like, who doesn't feel the same way about somebody else like that, even if it's not like a marriage thing, but like you have relationships that you feel connected like in the same sort of way. And then they did the song Decode on Twilight, and I'm like, I started loving Twilight just as they released that song, and I was like, if I could have loved Twilight,
you watch that video clip, by the way, is so 2009. Like the way that like it's filmed, they're in the forest, and Twilight's playing. I'm like, this is so, it's like Paramore was like a huge band at that time. Twilight was the biggest thing in the world. I'm like, this is like, I'm 15 years old again, and I'm like, oh my fucking god, like what is going on? Here's a question for you, Astrid. How did you feel about Hayley's 2 solo albums?
I feel like I haven't heard them too much. I heard mostly the singles, and I feel like okay about that, but I obviously the Paramore stuff, it's like better for me at least. But I just like, I loved having not only that, but having like a female lead in a band at that time, especially to me that was like incredible, because obviously we had like Gwen Stefani with No Doubt, but in the alternative scene we didn't have a lot of females in the front, and then having her like representing, and with that voice that she has, I was like, every time I heard her, I just wanted to cry. Yeah, and I'm like, having her in Twilight, I couldn't stop putting Decode on repeat. And even now when I listen to Spotify, it doesn't sound the same from the one I have in my mind. So when I play it, I'm like, this is not the same. I don't want to listen to it. But yeah, and growing up with them, every time I see the Twilight book, I think of Decode, because that's already how I connect them.
Yeah.
And I got to see them like in an amphitheater. Like I had to go to Tampa to go see them because they didn't come to Orlando, and I was so upset. And even being there, I started jumping and singing to every single song. And I just like, I need to.
They're good live too. I've seen them twice.
I was just gonna say one of the best live. I've seen them a lot of times.
Yeah, they're incredible. Hayley's like her presence,
great front
stage,
person, great
incredible
rock star. Like she's a rock star.
Yeah, incredible. I
Incredible.
want to see them again live for sure because I miss seeing them. I've only seen them I think twice if I'm not mistaken. I went without my siblings the first time and they got mad at me because I didn't bring them with me. So that when we went to Tampa, we all went, all three of us together. My brother even started liking them around like after laughter, but he started listening to the old stuff
Yeah.
afterwards. And it's funny to me because seeing them, like my siblings, they were like at first like, oh, that music is lame, but then now they start listening to the music with me, and they enjoy it as much as I do now. So just it's nice to see them like connect like that with us as a family too.
Yeah. It's cool.
They're not on my list, but I love Paramore. I will be upfront after Brand New Eyes, and they kind of changed their direction. That's when I kind of hopped off the Paramore train a little
Come
bit.
on. Their best
much
two albums are their last two albums. I think Astrid would probably nearly agree. Like musically,
You know,
they're the best.
as you'll see when we go through my artists, like besides one of them, the heavier stuff is where I lie.
That doesn't surprise me. I don't know why.
When they
your aesthetic kind of gives that. I know that's really judgy, but your aesthetic gives that to me, and I'm like, you would listen to a lot of like heavy metal, I feel.
Yeah. I got a couple heavier bands, but but they're all rock, like, you know, of that ilk. So but Paramore, their first three, All We Know Is Falling, Riot, and Brand New Eyes for me were like, they were one of in my rotation regularly. I traveled to see them live, like that type of thing. So I was heavily invested. And then when the brothers left and they kind of changed their direction a little bit, and it was less pop punky and more kind of just alternative, I wasn't at that point in my life.
Okay, JPJ, I'm going to say something to you because I'm a Paramore defender. Their heaviest song they ever did is called Part 2. It's on the Paramore self-titled album. Listen to it. If you like heavier stuff, it's their heaviest song. Would you say it's their heaviest song they've ever done, Astrid? Part 2? That's a heavy track.
I think the other one's Monster, I believe.
Oh, Monster for the Transformers movie.
Yes.
Also a great.
I might have heard that one for the
Transformers. I'll stop the whole
He's the reason why I have red hair.
Okay,
I'm upset it didn't come the same tone.
Turning into a monster.
Yeah, that song.
Us alive. It's such a good song. Oh, but yeah, listen to. It's called Part 2. If do you remember "Let the Flames Begin" from Riot? That song?
Oh yeah.
That's part 2 to that song, and it's very heavy. Like it's it's intense. So listen to that. But anyway, go on. I keep interrupting you because I love Paramore. Sorry.
No. Yeah. So I was gonna say you're not gonna get any slander from me when it comes to Paramore. So
I'd kick you off the show.
No. And they came out, dude. Guys, they came out right in my wheelhouse. Like I think their first album. What year did it drop?
2005.
Okay. So I was 20. 1920.
I was 10.
Going to Warped Tour in America. They had Warped Tour every year. And they were just becoming a band, and they were at Warped Tour every year. They were like opening or second on all these lineups of these bigger bands at the time that I loved. So that's how I saw them so much. They would pop on for a half hour playing second in some random ass show in front of like 300 kids. And you just see this little tiny redhead girl get up there and just kick ass and just like take over the room. And you were like, what the hell? Who is this band? Who is this band?
Boys.
And all the boys were like, yeah, obviously 18, 19-year-old boys were like, who's this? Who's the chick? Like that's, and when you saw how badass she was and just how she has pipes, she can sing, it was just, I knew right away. The first couple times I saw them, I'm like, they're going to be huge. They're going to be huge.
They're one of the,
be a star.
Like, they're one of the biggest, man. This is bold, but like they're one of the biggest, at least female-led rock bands ever. Like I can't really think,
at least in their window, like their biggest height window, like for sure.
There's no, they're worldwide, like, and it's so cool. Astrid, you talk about like females being in this spot, like it's opened the door. I listen to so many bands that are female-led. And, people are always like, oh, you only like it because of Haley. It's like, but you could say that for any band. You would like mainly the lead singer the most because they're the front person for a reason. Dave Grohl of Foo Fighters. It's like, without Dave Grohl, that band is probably nothing. No offense. Like, they're very good and talented.
They're the poster child for the band.
Exactly. It's any front person is the poster child. It's like, oh, you're only spotlighting her because she's a woman at front. It's like, no. Any front person is going to be recognized more because they're literally the front person. But like I love the whole band, don't get me wrong. I love Paramore and there's nothing like Taylor and everything like that. But My God, like, come on. Like, I hate when people give me that bullshit. It's like, come on.
No, it's like, think of Maroon 5.
Yeah.
Tell me the names of all the
I
other
don't want to
bandmates.
think of Maroon 5.
Exactly.
We all know the
Exactly.
frontman, but tell me the names of everybody else. And sometimes I'm like, I have no idea what
I
their
have
names
no
are.
idea. I know him, but that's it. It's
Yeah.
the same thing. But JPJ, what's your first one, since me and Astrid both like gave our gushers over Paramore?
It's all right. It's all right. Yeah. So this first one, I went more of a chronological
Mhm.
aspect of it. So this one's really the only sentimental one. But so my name is JPJ. The P stands for Poulin. That's my last name. And on the Poulin side of the family, when I was younger, like they were all born 50s, 60s. The Beatles were everything to, like, even to this day. Like if we're at a family holiday, the Beatles are getting played at some point. Like they're just a staple of a lot of things. They're the
Yeah.
Beatles, for crying out loud. But they're like a staple of the Poulin, my side of that side of the family. So when I was younger, that's what my dad played a lot. They were kid safe. There were really no swears or no, it wasn't too heavy or anything like that. They had heavier songs where they got heavy, but like, you know, you weren't going to hear you weren't going to hear any swears. You weren't going to hear anything inappropriate in a Beatles song. You know, there's songs that were poppy and catchy enough that you could bop to and stuff like that. And then as you got older, that's when my dad was a big music guy. That whole side of the family is, and that's why I'm a big music guy. And when you got older, when I was getting older, approaching my teenage years, as I was falling in love with other bands that we'll talk about in a little bit, he was like, all right, you're starting to like a little heavier, like obscure stuff. Okay, well, listen to this Beatles song.
Yeah.
Because this Beatles song is not a Beatles song you'll hear on the radio ever, but it fits what, you know, and so like you can find a Beatles song that not everyone maybe has heard, and you're like, this is the Beatles?
Yeah.
Like this sounds like it should be Led Zeppelin
Yeah.
or like another hard rock, like, and you're like, no, that's the same band that was singing Hold My Hand. You know what I mean? So like the Beatles, just for like that kind of family aspect and growing up, were like essential to my family. So that's the first band that comes to mind when I think of, like, you know, the question you had posed was like artists that defined us or like kind of changed our life, defined us. The Beatles defined my last name from like that side of the family. So that's kind of the first one that it had to be for me. So
the Beatles are not something that. So my dad was born in the 70s. And my dad grew up on a lot of, you know, when you're a kid, and my mum loves music, but she's one of those mums that's like, I'll listen to whatever's on the radio. She doesn't really like, she loves music, but she's not something to like study music. It would literally be, as a kid, I remember sitting down and my dad would be the one that would be like the DJ of the house. He would put on all the music. Other than my older brother, like my dad was the one that was putting on music. So I grew up with a lot, instead of like the Beatles and stuff, I grew up on a lot of like Duran Duran, and I grew up on a lot of Kiss, and I grew up on a lot of Led Zeppelin, Van Halen. Like that's what I grew up on. So like the Beatles, I feel like I always was like, if the Beatles were being talked about here, I was here. And then if the Beatles were talking about here, I was over here. So like, I feel like I always just missed. I understand their impact on music, and they're a very important part of music
and things like that. Yeah.
Music history. But I don't know. The Beatles was never something that I just like. I've obviously heard Beatles songs and I know them when I hear them. I'm like, oh, this is the Beatles. But like, it was never something that I just like just dived headfirst into with the Beatles. Not because I dislike, it just never happened. I don't know. I don't know. Did you, Astrid, what about you with the Beatles? Is that something that you ever identified with?
To me, I didn't listen to them at first because growing up in Puerto Rico, the music is different.
Yeah.
But then being older, my brother and I my brother started listening to them, and I realized that I heard so many Beatles songs. I didn't realize were Beatles songs. Like I told him at the beginning when he first started, I kept thinking, wait, I heard "Here Comes the Sun" in The Parent Trap all the time, and
that's where I first heard it.
And that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of songs like that you hear and you're like, oh, I know that song, and then you'll hear the Beatles version, you'll be like, oh, I didn't know that was a Beatles song.
Like the Yellow Submarine, that's a Beatles song, right?
Yellow Submarine.
That I always heard that as a kid, but I didn't know it was the Beatles until probably 5 years ago. I'm like, wait a minute, what? I didn't know that. So Here Comes the Sun, I heard in The Parent Trap too.
There's a lot of songs that were just covered, or they're like in commercials or like movies by other people, and you're like, oh, all right, I remember that song from something, but then you might hear the Beatles and you're like, oh my God, I had no idea
Yeah.
this was a Beatles song. And like, you know, I don't want to go off too much on the Beatles tangent,
No,
but
go
like
for
they
it.
have so much music and they're so significant. Like I feel
Yeah.
like if you talk to a lot of people, like especially musicians, like the Beatles helped influence almost everything, right? They only made that
Literally.
music in like a 7-year span.
It's
Like that was it.
crazy.
Like from 1963 was their first music, and they were broken up by 1970.
Yeah,
And they have so much
it's
music,
insane.
and it's so historical and significant, all of it, most of it. And it was only in such that, like, there's artists now that release 2 albums in a 7-year span, and they had
Yeah.
like 14
Mm-hmm.
or something ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, and like me going to Disney, when you go to the UK pavilion, there's always like a cover band at a certain time. And I realized like how many songs I know from the Beatles that they performed. And I was like, that's crazy. I didn't like I told my brother so many times, like, I heard that song before, but I didn't know that was a Beatles song. And same thing with Queen, for example. That's another one for me that I didn't realize. I'm like, oh, that's a Queen song. I heard that one before. And I realized later when I added to my playlist how many songs I heard from them, and I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Queen is something my dad loved. Oh my God. My mum loves Queen as well. I mean, Queen, it felt like the hot thing because of the movie that came out, last year before? Was it a couple years ago now at this point?
2019 maybe, the year before, everything.
And I feel like everyone was like, I love Queen. And I'm like, well, I've heard these songs for a long time because of my parents. But like, I remember, weirdly enough, just before my parents got divorced, I remember this one night. You know, there's weird things you can remember when you're a kid and you don't, they mean nothing. Like they have no actual impact on anything, but you just remember it. I remember this like barbecue that we had, and it was like my mum, my dad. It was probably the last time my whole family was all together before my parents had split. So like I just remember, and my mum and dad just put Queen on all night, and like we were just eating food, and it was like, you know, November, so it's like warm here. Like it was like light until like 8 o'clock at night, and you're like, oh, this is wonderful. You're sitting out and listening to Queen. And I would have been 10, 11 maybe at that age, but like absorbing that in, and you're not even, when you're that age, you don't, I won't speak for everyone, for the most part, when you're that age, you don't really understand music. You don't really, it's just noise, and you're like, oh, this sounds good. Like, I mean, that's to a certain degree for everything now, but like you understand if you really study music a little bit more. But like, I just remember doing that, and Queen was always a band that just, everyone kind of, with the whole family, you know, like my brother's 7 years older than me, my sister's 4 years younger than me, and we still all got into it, and we still all know, and we kind of grew up in that, on that kind of music. So I guess we had quote unquote good influences from my parents. I guess I can say that. But the Beatles, never something that my parents were really ever like, boom, let's drill this home and drill this, you know, with the kids. It's not really going to happen. But Queen. When you say Queen, it's like holy crap. But number 2 is like a little bit more of like Paramore is something that was so like, just like, I like the sound of this. But then there's also cool stuff with music that hits you more on an emotional level. And for me, this has only been in the last like maybe 3 or 4 years of my life, you know, realizing who I am as a person, all of the GAY stuff, and realizing that this is probably not going to be like this very corny response, but like the second one for me is Lady Gaga. Now, for reasons it's a little bit more than just like the sound of her music. She has some songs that I don't really care for, to be honest. I'm just like, I don't really love this. But her message and her power through her actual music, instead of just obviously she comes out and says like, be who you are, whatever, stuff like that. And I love that about Lady Gaga. But her music actually has those messages in there without it just being like, you know, corny, cheesy, be yourself. Like, she actually has like music that's a little bit more than just the simple messages. Like, she actually has it in the sound of her music. She has odd music that people are like, what the hell is this? But then when you actually listen to it and you're like, this is actually really good music. And a lot of people are like, she's this and she's not that talented. It's like, if you actually hear Lady Gaga just on a piano and her voice, she's so powerful. I don't like people that say pop music isn't powerful and like, oh, it's all just manufactured garbage. Like, okay, there's an argument for some of it maybe, but like a lot of like some of our best voices in the world are just mainstream pop singers. And Gaga's one of those people. But Gaga has that message. I remember this interview with Gaga. I'll never forget it. And you know when everyone thought Gaga was a man? Remember when everyone was like, Gaga has a penis? Remember when that was like mainstream news in like 2010? And the interviewer was like, you know, there's all these rumors about you used to be a man or you have a penis or something. And he's like, so do you have a penis? She goes, why does it matter if I did? I'm like, damn. When I was like 12 years old, 13 years old, hearing that, you don't even realize what that does to your brain. And like at the wiring that it does in your, at the time it didn't, I was just like, haha, that's funny. But like as you get older and as I started to discover who I was as a person, I'm like, wait a minute, why does that kind of shit matter? But like her music, aside from all the emotional stuff, Gaga does produce some fucking slappers, by the way. Gaga has some good, like, just like radio pop music that's just like good. But as she's evolved and as like her last few records, I don't know how much of you guys are into Lady Gaga, but she has some like really great music. Like that's just outside of just like the standard pop formula that kind of it works. She has music outside of that. It's like, whoa, Gaga can slay on piano, and she can her voice is very powerful, very like raspy, like I like that kind of sound, especially in a female. I like that kind of raspiness to someone's voice. But Gaga is to me just on an emotional level. I'll always say that like that time period, especially when I first came out and shit like that, I was like, Gaga has just a very uplifting message, and also like a message of like a little bit more on a deeper level, like not everything is always green grass. Like it can be kind of shit, which I like because like we said, music is not just being like, I like the sound of this. It's also hitting you on an internal level of like, okay, like I feel this in a way that I don't feel with other music. So Gaga's always going to be in there for me just on that level. But I guess we'll go around the room. I don't know how much you have to say on Gaga, but Astrid, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking back. I forgot the name of the song. The one that she had with R. Kelly. I forgot the name of it.
Do what you want.
Yeah, I know I don't like him like that, but that song sounded so good. And A Million Reasons is another one that I really enjoyed. And come on, Mike, I know it's from the movie, but Shallow sounded incredible. I'm sorry, I loved it. I know it's cliche because of the movie, but
I've never watched that movie, but I've heard that song so many times.
I love that song.
I mean, even like how can you not like Just Dance? Come on, and Poker Face. Come on, if you heard them,
those are.
If you heard them, you'd go off. Come on now.
Yeah, like those ones are bangers.
Yeah,
those ones are bangers. Paparazzi, come on.
Oh, when she plays that with just a piano, have you ever heard like just a piano version of Paparazzi?
Oh no, but I can imagine. She's got pipes, man. She's gonna, like you said, like some of the better voices that we hear are those prototypical like. Yeah, so what? She's popular, but like, are you gonna tell me that like Adele isn't one of the best voices?
Oh my, her new song
ever heard?
Have you guys
listened to it a dozen times in like the last 2 days?
Oh my god, it like hits you on a Adele? It's so weird because Adele. Here we go, Astrid. You're gonna get what we love. We're just spiraling. Adele talks so like she has like a really like thick accent, and she just kind of fucking whatever fucking like she doesn't sound like you're like, how does that angelic sound come out of that voice? Because she has I mean, par for par, she is I'll say it, she's the best voice in pop music, Adele. Well, the most powerful voice in pop music. I know that a lot of people will be like Mariah and Ariana Grande and people like this, but Adele just like, Adele and Sia are like here. But Adele, like, how does that new song of hers is so, man, does that just like pull your heart out of your chest and you're like, wow, I wasn't sad, but now I'm sad. Like, it's just like, holy crap. Adele is really brilliant at going away for a long time and letting people forget about her. And then when she comes back, it's like, you're only going to talk about me. Like there's, because absence can make the heart grow fonder, but also in the world of entertainment, if you're forgotten, you're gone. So to do that and to be this, it's just, damn. Adele's got a wonderful, powerful voice. But yeah, Gaga's my second one. So Astrid, you can say yours.
My next one will be kind of like in the Paramore kind of route. The band's called There for Tomorrow. They started like a local band, and I enjoy them so much because I feel like they were around my age and we kind of grew up around the same time, but they were going to a different like local high school. But thanks to Warped Tour and my friend telling me about Warped Tour in 2009, exactly when I graduated from high school, she's like, let's go to Warped Tour. I'm like, I don't know what this is. I don't know how to prepare, but let's go. And I went and I met them. And I started listening to their songs, and I just like, I love their music so much. Like, there's some pages, it came out like around the time I was in high school. And I kept thinking about like, they talk about how you change from going to high school to like the changes you go and have and experiences in life. And it just stuck to me. And I know like the lead singer Micah, he writes like incredible. And he has another song called Deathbed, and he wrote it about his father's suicide. And even though like I never had anybody, like I haven't lost anybody due to suicide, but I had like my grandpa, he died when I was young, and I didn't get to know him like that. And listening to that song, I feel connected to like wanting my grandpa to be here and to see so many experiences he missed from all of us and like my siblings and I. So that made me think about like that song. And I've seen them perform so many times locally. Like I even went to like a mall that was like probably like an hour away, and I asked my parents to drive us just to watch them perform because I really just wanted to see them. And I see them at work through so many times. And then like the lead singer now, he's a Christian. So even my parents were like, we were talking about like a youth group and everything. So we told them, why don't we bring Micah in here? He has like a powerful message. He went from being a drug addict and alcoholic to now being and going to church and everything. So my dad was like, kind of like, how does that go? So when my dad heard him talk about his testimony, he was so touched about it. And I was like, yeah, I grew up listening to him. I went from like this song to this song with him. And it's incredible. Like I even now when I'm at work, even sometimes I'm doing stuff at work and I put the playlist that I have from like my favorite songs about them, and it just sends me back to like my high school times. And I love like reminiscing on those good memories, and they bring back those good memories for me. So if you haven't checked them out, I suggest you do. I love them. Like I listen to them in Spotify all the time. But they even came up like one of their music videos came up at the time in MTV when MTV was the thing. And even that was like so big as we are thinking like this local band from Florida, it's an MTV premiere in the music video. So that was incredible for us to watch it as like the emo kids and the scene kids as they call them here. So it was incredible to like, oh my god, I'm watching the countdown until they come up with the video, and it's so cool. But I have loved them for so long. And I know when they had like an anniversary show, and I told my sister I want to go, and she bought me the tickets for Christmas. And we got everything. We took pictures with them and the merch and everything. And I was like, I just love like watching them sing live. And my sister was taking their pictures. So at the end, even one of the guys looked at my sister, was like, what do you want? What can I give you? So he gave her like one of the drumsticks and like one of the sheets and things like that. Because he knew already who my sister was because of me. I introduced my sister to them as well. So she was like, I want to go to the shows. I want to experience everything with them. So even she bought like the wristband, and she took pictures. Like, she has pictures with them from middle school up until now as an adult. And it's incredible to see her grow up as as they got older, seeing her grow up with them as well. It's pretty like special to me with them.
Yeah. I've honestly never, I won't lie, I won't blow smoke up anyone's ass, never heard of them. But I mean, like, to hear your story with that kind of stuff is like, not only just makes you want to be like, I'll check that out, but be like, it's cool to have bands that you've never heard of touch people, and you're like, oh, that's cool. Like, that's cool. JPJ, have you heard of them?
I've heard of them. I was actually shocked that Astrid said them. I was like, oh, all right. I'm not, not one of my favorite, nothing like that. I was never heavily a listener of them, but I definitely know who they are. I've seen them live. I think I've seen them on tour with a few people. All Time Low once, I think they did some stuff with. Yeah, so like that was definitely in the wheelhouse of that pop punk, screamo, emo, whatever you want to call that stuff. When I was heavily into that, so I know who they are. Yeah, they're a pretty good band. The songs that I remember from them, yeah, they're pretty good. Definitely alternatively, like more upbeat, like fast paced.
Yeah, they have a couple of acoustic ones that I like too, and they did a couple of remixes that I enjoyed too. But they started like really like heavy even when I put them on for my dad, who's like, he grew up listening to like Van Halen and like Striper. So that was his thing, and I grew up listening to that. So when I put the headphones on for him, he was like, they sound pretty good. Like they're kind of heavy in that sense. So he really liked that I like that kind of music. And I'm like, yeah, I'm an emo kid at heart. I mean, I look like it, but I am.
I was too. I was too. I love a good. By the way, I love. Oh, I still am to a certain degree too. I love a good acoustic album. By the way, when a band releases or an artist releases like a full acoustic album or an acoustic EP, I'm like, there's nothing better than just like the sounds of a steel string guitar or like a piano or something like that. I'm just like, I love stripped back versions of songs. Like, it's my favorite thing when you have this big elaborate piece of music, no matter the genre, and then they strip it back and you're like, oh, this is like a beautiful song when it's just like bare bones. And I like that. But then I also like when an acoustic song is then amplified by all of these instruments, and I'm like, whoa, like this sounds so cool like that. I just like when music sounds different from the original. But yeah, that's where were we at? JPJ, I think it's your second.
Yeah. So this one's kind of like a twofold because I liked them when I was younger, but I really didn't understand at the time all the message they were doing. But it's Rage Against the Machine.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. In my opinion, and this is a strong opinion, most underrated rock band of the 90s. Underrated.
Damn.
They're
very 90s. They're very like
yes.
grunge. I say grunge.
Very heavy hip hop lyrics, but very heavy, presented with rap vocals. They were just cool. When I was younger, they just sounded cool. The guitars sounded like no other guitars you would hear. They were heavy. Him rapping, he is a great frontman. Like he has really good vocals, really good presentation. So I just liked them because they were different and cool back then. Because they were doing their first album came out in like 1991. So they were doing like the hip hop rock stuff before it got really, really popular with like the Limp Bizkits and the Korn and I liked Korn a lot too in my younger days. But like they were kind of the first ones to kind of be like, yo, we're really heavy, like we're rock, but like we rap.
I only really remember from them like Killing in the Name of, but that's like everybody.
Oh yeah. So I liked them a lot back then, but then, and I've always listened to them throughout my life, but with the last couple of years, especially in America and just the way things have been going politically and just all that stuff, I really started listening to them like regularly again and remembering the lyrics as the songs came on and singing along, and they mean a whole lot more now. Like if you listen to like Bulls on Parade, Killing in the Name of, and you actually read those lyrics, they wrote that shit 30 years ago and it is still as relevant today.
Funny how music
and
does
it's
that.
like yeah, and it just made me, I always appreciated them. They're on my list for crying out loud. Like they were always one of the bands I liked a lot, but I think with everything that was going on these last few years and like for some reason they just popped on Spotify one day and I just kind of went down the rabbit hole of Rage and I was just like, man, like they were talking about the issues that we're all talking about finally now, literally in 1992.
Yeah.
And it's just like
insane.
What the hell, man? We're talking 30 years later. And nothing, like the stuff they're saying, still issues, still the problem. And it's just, so it's kind of like a lifelong thing, but I almost feel like I appreciate them more now because I'm an adult and I've lived a life, like, and I see issues. I understand issues more. I understand what he was fighting for, what he was raging against. There's these jokes that you see where like, and I was one of those people that like, the 13-year-old kid listening to Rage was like, oh, I hate my mom. She's not letting me go to the mall on Friday. I'm going to rage against the machine. Like, cause that's how I thought. And now I'm an adult and it's like, oh no, yeah, no, they were talking about, poverty and like racial inequality and yeah. All right. So now I'm like, I get it. I get what they were raging at. The machine's the government. I get it. And it's just like, it's just so much more of a appreciation / understanding of what they were really fighting for. But yeah, man, I think if you listen to Rage Against the Machine now, if they came out now, I still think they would be as popular as they were back then. At least I think they would kick the shit out of some people that need to be getting their shit kicked in a little bit, if that makes
sense. Especially in an American society right now.
No offense. Last year during everything, if they would have just been like, hey guys, we're back, here's a new album, that would have been, everyone would have been like, oh God. And it just would have been amazing. You know what I mean? So
I don't really have much to add to them because I've only heard like I probably heard more songs than I even realize from them. But I know like their main songs, but that's not to say that I dislike it. It just was never something that I discovered. I wouldn't even say that it wasn't my thing. It's just I think I missed the time. I was born a little after.
Well, yeah. I
By
mean,
the time I got old enough, they were kind of like floated out of relevancy.
I was gonna say they phased out probably like early 2000s.
Exactly. When I was really getting like aware of music as a kid, I was.
Yeah.
In the year 2000, I was 5. So,
yeah, exactly. So, but I could give you a handful of songs off.
By the way, when we finish this call, I feel like we're gonna be like, here, listen to this before you go, because
we'll give ourselves homework. It'll be fun.
Astrid, anything to add about Rage Against the Machine?
No, I know the name sounds familiar, and I feel like probably if I hear a song or two, it might come to mind, but I can't think about a song right now from them. But maybe later when JPU says make a playlist or a song later to listen to.
All right, number 3 for me. You guys are not going to know this band because they're Australian. That's really crazy, like how you said about like Puerto Rican music. Australia is really weird in some aspects of some things are like monstrous here, and they never cross the border. They never get to the States, I should say, because America's the entertainment capital of the world. But like, there's some bands and artists in Australia that are like literal icons in this country, and every Australian knows their music. Well, not everyone. This band doesn't in particular, but like there's a lot of that in Australia, and it's weird that you brought that up. But this band is then honestly not huge in Australia. They're getting bigger. They're called Hands Like Houses.
I know them.
See, they're like my number 2, just behind Paramore. They are a brilliant band. I discovered them, oddly enough, through wrestling. I only discovered them 3 years ago when the Super Showdown was on, and like in Australia, and one of their songs was playing. I'm like, what is this song? I like this music. What is this? And then obviously, I literally was at Super Showdown and I Shazammed this song and I was like, what is this? And it come up and I was like, Hands Like Houses. And then you do like discovering, I'm like, are they from Canberra? They're Australian? What the hell? I've never heard of this band before. And then, I discover that I genuinely love this band. I have Anon, one of their albums right here, signed by Hands Like Houses. I have, you can't really see, but like up here, I've got like a postcard. Written to me from the band.
That's cool.
Like I've just built like one of their drummer, Maddie. He's often in my Twitch chat. Like I hang out with him a lot. I talk with the lead singer a lot on like different things. I try not to brag. I'm not coming across as bad. That's just a cool thing to have. In my kind of wheelhouse, and like I said, I've got their vinyl of my favorite album of theirs, which is Anon, which a lot of Hands Like Houses fans will be like, what the fuck? But I love that album. But yeah, Hands Like Houses, they're brilliant. I do encourage anybody that's like, what the fuck are these people? They're very good. They are a rock. If you like rock music, they do have a lot of like alternative, a little heavier stuff. Especially, I call it like post-hardcore. I guess you could call it
post-hardcore.
But like in that first couple of albums, that's what they like, and they've probably gone towards more of a mainstream rock feel in their last couple of albums, which is fine. I have no problem with that. A lot of people do. I don't. It's still very rock. Like it's still very rock music. But they're not a band that I would listen to. Like a lot of people, when I tell them I like that and then they hear it, they're like, that doesn't really, people that know me, like, that's not really your vibe of music that I get. And it is a little different for me, but I really like their sound. I love Trenton's voice. He's got a brilliant, like, lead singer voice. And they just, and, to see like an Australian band that are honestly probably bigger in the States than they are here, and they're bigger in the UK than they are here. But to see them kind of watch and they're getting bigger and bigger and you're like, oh, this is cool. Like to see them grow and stuff like that. So I would encourage you, like JPJ, Astrid, I don't think I think you well, like I've never heard of them, but I would, check them out, check them out.
You can send me a playlist when we're done. I'm just telling you right now.
JPJ, you said you've heard of Hands Like Houses? I
have. The earlier stuff when they were heavier.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to a lot of their, I would say, probably the last 5, 6 years or so, mid 2010s.
Yeah.
I don't know much of anything like that has been released since then, but their earlier stuff where they did get like occasionally heavy a little bit. That was the stuff I'm going to forget the name of their first album. Might have been. I don't think it was
The
self-titled,
definition.
was it?
What is it? Fuck. Now I've forgotten to.
It's a longer title.
Yeah, the
It's a
definition.
longer title.
Hold up. I'm not gonna calm down here now. It's the definition of something. What is it? No, wait, hold up. Are you talking about Ground Dweller?
Yes.
Yeah, they have a song on there called The
10-ish, like around there, probably
2012.
11, 12.
12.
Yeah. So I know that one.
Unimagined's a great album. You should listen to that. And Anon's great. And they have EPs and stuff like that too. But they have gotten a little...
I vividly remember the song "This Ain't No Place for Animals."
That's a great song.
I remember that was a song that was a regular in the rotation for me.
I don't listen to their... Ground Dweller is probably, out of all of them, my least favorite of their albums. I like that kind of more contemporary style, a little bit more upbeat stuff, but that's just me personally. But I love their music. They're a playlist that I just click shuffle on. Like I go to Spotify and just click shuffle on Hands Like Houses, and I'm just like, they're walking music for me. If I go for if I go for a walk or a jog,
yep,
that's like that's just like the band I listen to, because it gets you kind of moving and pumped up and kind of keeps you moving. It's cool. But Hands Like Houses, great band. I suggest anybody to check them out because they're a good time. Astrid, another one for you.
I know I'm gonna end up changing probably the last couple too, but for the next one, I'm gonna stick to the one I have, which is Set It Off. Another like local-ish band.
You have a vibe. I like your style.
I did not know she had this vibe. This is my vibe.
There you go. But no, I had a good experience with them because I think I'm not mistaken if it was the last Warped Tour or the one before the last one. My friend Gabby, who's been friends with them for so long, she knew how much my sister and I ended up loving Set It Off, that she invited us to their bus at Warped Tour.
Nice.
So we got into the bus before the album got released. And he's like, "Oh, I heard that you guys are fans or whatever, so I'm gonna play you guys a couple of songs before they come out." And I was like, "Holy crap, I'm gonna end up having a heart attack listening to these songs." So he played Diamond Girl before it got released, and he played two other songs. I don't remember which ones they were, but listening to Diamond Girl, I was like, "Oh my god, I love how this sounds." And he's like, "Yeah, that's gonna be one of the new ones." And my sister was working for the management they had at the time, so she heard it a lot in the office, and she's like, "Yeah, I heard this one. I like it a lot." And I'm like, "I'm so jealous to get to hear this before I do." She got to listen to Paramore's too, like Haley's stuff before it got released because of the management too. So I was like, she's like, "Haley has a great song coming out, just letting you know." But yeah, I always had such a good experience with Set It Off, and they're incredible. They had a show actually in Full Sail once that they filmed. I forgot what was the tour it was for. But being there and seeing them live as well, and the voices and how they sound together, and even for the last Warped Tour, they let me be on stage. So if you look at probably the Orlando, Florida show, I'll be in the side somewhere on the stage at Warped Tour, because I was like about to cry watching them from stage, from behind the scenes, like watching them perform. And even Max, who's the drummer, he's a huge WWE fan. So he's always like wearing like the championship or in the drum set, things like that. They're always like wearing it somehow. And they do reference, like they say, "Oh, the main event for this and this and that." And they do a couple of references here or there. But I have always loved their sound. And I like how every song, it sounds different, for me at least. And I feel like every song gives me like a different experience. And I feel like you can see how, and basically how Cody, who was the lead singer, how his life has been different based on the music. Because some of them sounds more angry, and the other one sounds more like he's more in love with the person he's with. So I like how the mood kind of changes with every song that he plays or he does.
Yeah, no, I've definitely heard of them. I haven't heard a lot of their stuff, but I'm like, I definitely know that. I definitely have heard songs of theirs. JPJ, any comments?
I've seen them live a few times. They've been in tours or where they've been on the support. I was never super duper into them, but I liked their presence. They would all wear the same outfits on stage a lot, like shirts and ties. Yeah, shirts and ties and things like that. So they all looked a certain way, and they would have like keyboards and stuff, and like kind of be like poppy, but then they'd have breakdowns where it would get heavy, and just kind of, that stuff was like right in my wheelhouse for like the majority of my 20s. I never really got out of my sad boy emo stage. I'm still in it from time to time. But yeah, they were definitely in the regular like touring circuit
Mm-hmm.
when I was heavy. I used to go to like a lot of shows when I was younger, like a lot, like weekly. I would go wherever bands were, I was going, and they were definitely in the rotation. So I've seen them a lot more times than I probably listened to them, if that makes sense.
I used to go to a lot of festivals. Soundwave was one. I don't know if you had that. I don't know if that was just an Australian one. A lot of international acts come over. I seen Fozzy, guys. I got to see Fozzy.
Oh, hey-o.
There was a Y2G chant that broke out in like 2010. It was the weirdest shit ever. I was like, what the fuck? Because they were on just before Paramore. They were on like the set. I've looked at stages at festivals, and they were on a stage at like 3:30, 4 o'clock, and they played for like 45 minutes before Paramore came on because they were one of the main acts. And I was looking at the lineup. I'm like, wait, I want to watch Paramore. So I was basing everything around Paramore, and I was like, Fozzy? Chris Jericho? They're not great live. No offense. They're okay. But Jericho.
I've never seen them, but it doesn't shock me. But yeah, like you said, you're going. People like us, I believe, would go see Fozzy to see Jericho.
Yeah,
right?
There was a Y2J chant that broke
Judas,
out.
Maybe that's about what we would do.
This was in 2010, so the only song I knew of theirs was like
Enemy.
Enemy.
Way before Judas.
Enemy.
Enemy was a big one.
Great song, by the way. What a great song Enemy is. Fozzy have a couple of slappers that you're like, oh, that's a good song. And then the other ones you're like, oh, that's not my vibe. But just me personally. But I used to go to a lot of music festivals. There was one that was called, I went through a stage in my life where I was just into indie, like that kind of indie sound. And this was when Lord just started to first blow up. But there's this festival called Laneway, and it literally is a festival that's built in lanes, and you would have lots of that kind of folky sound, like that kind of Phoebe Bridgers kind of sound. That was the kind of... A lot of people went to this festival stoned out of their mind because like it was just like a... it wasn't a festival where you were jumping around. It was just a festival where you were just kind of like, yeah. So there was lots of like, there was a lot of weed smell around this place. Trust me. But I got to see Lorde basically just after like Royals and Tennis Court blew up, and that was cool. Awesome. She's a very interesting act to see live. She's very she's just very Lorde. I don't know how else to describe it. The movement she made, you know how Lorde kind of moves around real weird. Lorde has a cool sound. I don't love Lorde. I love some of her music, but there's other ones I'm like, I really don't like this at all. But she definitely has her own sound, and I appreciate that about especially artists in this time where a lot of it can kind of just be just bumbled into one kind of bubble. But Lorde is kind of out here doing her own. And I'm not saying just Lorde, but you know what I mean? Like, I'll say this out loud, and a lot of people that are like 20 years old won't like me saying this, but Lorde did a lot of Billy's stuff before Billy did any. Like,
that's what
Billy's
I knew it was coming.
Billy's like this big inventive person. I'm like, Lorde did this like 6 or 7 years ago, and she did it better. No offense, Billy. Just saying. Yeah. Billy's latest, like her first record and her second record, good stuff. Her latest one, not a fan. Not a fan. I'm not a fan. But Lorde did it all before Billy. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just saying. Yeah. I know a lot of people are like, you're stupid, but it's just my opinion. But anyway, JPJ, onto
subjective.
yours.
It's subjective, you know? Yeah, so my third one, probably my favorite band of all time. They first album came out like 2001, so I was in high school. Their main album of mine, which I actually have tattooed on me. I don't know if I have to. Like,
I
see.
Tattooed
on me.
I see.
That's the album cover there. They're a band called Brand New. That this album that I have tattooed on me is an album called Deja Entendu. I would recommend that album to literally anybody. It's alternative, but it's not. It's different. Every song is different. The lyrics are not for happy times, but the music is not melancholy. It's kind of weird. Like the lyric and the subject matter sometimes are heavy, like breakups and typical alternative emo type stuff. But musically and just the way everything was constructed together, they were just, in my opinion, so much better than everybody else that was putting out that type of music. Like their first album is called Your Favorite Weapon, and that is straight up pop punk. Like you hear that, you're like, these kids are teenagers. This is pop punk. It came out when I was in high school. They have a song on there called Soco Amaretto Lime. That's an acoustic song. And it's basically the soundtrack of these kids in a summer before they're all going away to college.
Mhm.
And when you're that age and you hear a song like that, that's all you think about is like, man, all these people that are really close to me, it's not going to be the same after you graduate high school. Life changes. You got to go to that next step. And like, that's a song that when it pops back on, I immediately think of all my high school friends and just the dumb, fun shit that we did in this, when we were 17 and 18 years old. And
Yeah.
it just brings me back to that time. And then their next album, Deja Entendu, is my favorite album of all time. I own it, multiple pressings on vinyl. I have it tattooed on me. Like it's an album that it got me through. The album came out in 2003. I'm 18 years old, just graduating high school. No idea what life is about to happen. No idea what's about to happen. No idea where I'm going, that type of stuff. And that was just an album that talked about not knowing your place and not knowing, whatever, and it was the perfect album for me in that time of my life. And their next album after that, also like almost as good as Deja. It's called The Devil and God. And it's amazing. Like those three records, but those two specifically, Deja and Devil and God, are like, to me, of that genre of music, which is my favorite genre of music, like there are no two better albums to me. And I would recommend everybody give them a listen. Like I said, you're not going to be in an upbeat mood. Like some of the stuff's heavy, but if you want to be sad or whatever, you just want to hear good alternative music that happens to be sad. I don't think there was a band that did it better than Brand New. I just don't. Later on, lead singer did some questionable stuff, which doesn't make me feel great about it. Not like real, like go away forever type stuff, but like some not great stuff. But yeah, man, they're probably still to this day my favorite band. I just think the music just resonates. I hear it now and it doesn't even feel like I'm listening to it 18 years later. Like it feels like I'm still like, it brings me back to that moment like right away. And I can just put on any of those albums at any point, anytime. And it's just, yeah, man, I'm just in it. I just get that feeling again of like, remember when you were 20? And then, that type of thing. So, but yeah, man, that's probably the top band for me ever.
Not gonna lie, I'm not gonna blow smoke out there. I've never heard of them. But I like hearing people's connections to things. Astrid, anything to add?
Yeah, I know I've heard about them, but I haven't heard their music because I know being in the alternative scene, you kind of hear the names here and there. So I need to check them out. I had never did, but I've heard that name before. So I was like, I know I need to check them out though. So I will.
Yeah, we got a lot of homework. Number 4 for me, is a band that I honestly 5 years ago, if you asked me about this band, well, probably a little bit longer now, I'd be like, it's not my vibe. I don't like this. And then when you do that thing where you're kind of stubborn, you're like, I'm not listening to this band. And then you start listening to them and you're like, uh-oh, I was wrong. I really like this band. It's 21 Pilots. I know it's probably not going to be for everybody, but they are I don't know how to put them in a genre box, and that's what I think put me off of them at first. I was like, what genre is this? I don't get it. Is it pop? Is it rock? Is it rap? Is it alternative? Is it new wave? I don't know what this is. But then I just realized I think that's the intended thing from them. That's the intent from them, is that they're just like, we're a little bit of everything and we're just 21 Pilots. I seen them, they opened for Paramore in 2010. I didn't know who they were. I was like, who the fuck is this band? I was like, I have no idea who 21 Pilots are, because they were nothing at that stage. I know now people are like, everyone knows who 21 Pilots are. They're one of the bigger bands in the world, or duos in the world, whatever you want to call them. And it's kind of insane to not know them at that stage, but I did not know who they were. My sister really got into them, and she was like, and that honestly was like, well, that's her thing. I'm not going to listen to them. And then you just start listening. You're like, whoa. They do have like, especially After Laughter, Paramore-ish, they have that kind of vibe like that, especially their new album that came out this year is really, really good. There's a song called Saturday by 21 Pilots. It's like my favorite 21 Pilots song. And it's just like this upbeat, like just feel good. Like there's no way, we talk about music that like puts you in a mood. There's no way that you could be like bottom of the barrel sad and you put this music on you. It's like, I'm just going to like, I don't know why I'm wearing this pink shirt, but this is the vibe of that song. And I don't know why. I don't understand. I'm just looking at it now. I'm like, if you want to know what this is what that song looks like. It's very like just colorful and bright and happy and upbeat, but they have lots of different kinds of music. Cause they have some heavy songs like Car Radio. Oh my goodness. That song by them is like, oh, that always like hits me here. I'm like, oh my goodness. And like the way that song builds to this like beautiful moment where it gets really intense. Like I love 21 Pilots, and it's only in the last maybe 4 years where I've really fell in love with them, but I fell in love with them hard. And like they're in my playlist of like my favorite bands. Like that's just all of their music is in there. They just have a lot of really great music. Their last couple of albums have been like fantastic. Blurry Face, I mean, everyone will love. That's probably what a lot of people think the peak of 21 Pilots is thus far. And Blurry Face is a great album that had songs like Polarize and that had songs like Stressed Out and, that era of 21 Pilots. But they're a band that's changed a lot, but also stuck to their core. So I kind of like that about them as well, which makes no sense because I'm saying two, contrary things, but like they've changed, but they've stayed the same. But 21 Pilots is, I mean, they're like in my upper group of like my favorite and things that have like really, especially like content, Josh, I guess you could say, kind of sum up. I think people would like point at me and go, I think you would listen to this kind of music. And I think that kind of sums up like my kind of personality in a bubble, especially their latest stuff. It's very bright, happy music for the most part. Astrid, 21 Pilots, are you a fan? You probably being like warped and all of that kind of stuff. They're in that kind of
Yeah,
bubble.
they performed a couple. I think they did early on. They were on a Warped Tour, like one of the last ones.
Yeah. I heard that I got introduced to them because of my siblings, but I thought that they had that more in common, so I kind of let them have it. I didn't listen to them because I was like, this is your thing together. But then I started listening to them and really enjoyed them. My sister said, well, I'm going to the show. If you want to come, I'll pay for your tickets. You can come with me because I was driving anyway. So I went, and to be honest, them and John Bellion are two of the people that I didn't listen to at first, and I fell in love with them watching those shows. Like I really did. Like the way they do everything, I was like so amazed. I'm like,
great
I want to see them again. Yeah, incredible. And I like seeing them together. But I still let them have it. So when they go to the shows, I tell them, go to the shows together. But being to that show alone, I really enjoy their music a lot. And yeah, and then like the song they did for Suicide Squad, Heathens, another one that I really love. I listen to every now and then. But yeah, I still have them in my alternative playlist. Is one of those people that are there sneaking in. But yeah, I think like they can't be like fit in one box, even though like their base is like alternative.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're all over the place, which I like about their sound. So like I can't pinpoint them to being just like alternative, but that's like the base of their sound to me. And I love so many of their songs. I actually performed House of Gold in my church for Mother's Day with my mom and my brother and two other people. So we changed a little bit of the lyrics for the bum part because we didn't want to sing that in the church. but we actually performed it live for my mom. We were having like practicing for like a week or two. And she was like crying after we did it. She's like, I just love that song. You know how it means so much to her hearing that song before, and then knowing that we performed it for her, it meant even more to her. And she always loves that song. Whenever she hears it, she starts singing it right away where she hears it from. And like my younger sisters, they're like 12 and 11, and they still listen to Paramore. They listen to Paramore and they listen to 21 Pilots. When we blast it, you can hear them singing with us too. So it's one of those things that we all enjoy together.
Yeah, 21 Pilots are like that. JPJ, probably not your vibe, but
yeah, I've heard the popular one. I've heard the popular ones. They had a music video for a few of them that I know those songs. I'm not gonna even pretend I remember the names of them.
Probably Stressed Out.
But
you
I
probably
know
heard Stressed Out and stuff
if they popped on, I would know. They're very, even though they're popular.
They have their own sound.
They have a very distinct sound.
Yeah.
So you would hear them and go, "That's 21 Pilots."
Yeah.
Even if you weren't a fan or some of their stuff like me, a few songs. If I heard them, I would know right away. Yeah, that sounds like. 21
and they kind of at this point,
they
kind of dominate that. Not that they have a defined type of music, but they dominate that kind of zone in the mainstream world. Like 21 Pilots is that band that does that. You know what? If that makes
Yeah.
any fucking sense, by the way.
Mhm.
It probably doesn't. But you know what I mean? Like that's just how they kind of are. Astrid, you're number 4.
This one I'm debating if I keep it or not, but I'm gonna go with Go Radio. This
Oh my God.
is, if you listen to Mayday Parade, you know that Jason Lancaster did his own band called Go Radio. So I remember I started listening to them because a friend of mine, Andrea, started suggesting them to me, and I really loved their first album a lot. And it's one of those bands like I ended up seeing them so often that Jason already knew who I was. And I remember a friend of mine wanted to do this kind of like online magazine for music, so we actually got in. Oh, I went to the bus to interview Jason. It's probably somewhere on YouTube, but I'm afraid to look at this point because I'm like, I look terrible, and I feel like I was so nervous, freaking out, like answering the questions. I feel like I made no sense. But yeah, I've been able to like interview Jason and like to be so close to like close and tell him how I love his music, and especially in Warped Tour, he was doing stuff by himself, like the acoustic stuff. And then he said how he started going back to church and all that stuff. So I had that connection with him about that as well. So be able to talk to him about it was really like special to me, especially during Warped Tour of all places. Like I told my dad, I was like, "You have no idea what I just went through today," and I told him everything that I went with Jason that day, and I love that connection I have with him, even listening to him now. And yeah, it's one of those bands that I still have in my alternative playlist that I listen to every now and then too.
Yeah, I definitely like them. I won't have too much more to add purely because they're just those bands that you listen to that you like don't have that strong of connection towards, but you like them. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Just those
Oh, yeah.
bands. Like that's what I feel. Anything to add, JPJ?
No, I don't know much of that band. However, she did mention Mayday Parade, and I will just say that A Lesson in Romantics is an all-time record by them. But anyway, other than that, I don't know much about that band, so that'll be kind of on my
Homework.
list of a few songs to check out.
Homework. We got all this homework. JPJ, number
Homework.
4
Yeah,
for
we're all
you.
gonna have homework.
We will.
Yeah. So number 4 for me, this is the heaviest band on my list.
Oh no.
So they might not be for everybody. But it is a band called Every Time I Die.
Sounds
and it
like
is
they
not,
would produce heavy music.
yes. And the lead guitarist of the band is the Butcher from AEW.
Oh, what? Wait, what?
Yeah, so the Butcher, the big guy, Andy. His real name is Andy Williams. Yes, his real name is Andy Williams. So the Butcher, he is the lead guitarist of this band. He's been doing Every Time I Die. I think their first album came out in 2001.
I'm just pitching the aesthetic of that band, knowing what he looks like.
Oh my God. And like
and then
like
the sound.
it's almost, I mean, yeah, not to make fun of the size of a lot of the wrestlers in AEW, but it's because I love AEW, but it's very much like seeing a man of that size at a hardcore screamo show where the tallest person there is me, who's 5'7", 5'6". Like the presence that he would have when he would come on stage, and we've seen the Butcher, like he's fully tatted, big beard, long hair. He would wear like overalls most of the time that I've seen them live. They're very much they're metal, but they have like a southernness to them, even though they're from Buffalo. They don't have any southern in them, but they very much have a southern twang. So like they have heavy songs where he's screaming the whole time, the vocalist. They have songs where he's singing the whole time. They got songs where they mix and match. They have actual, for how heavy they are, they have party songs that you hear, and like the beat is like, yeah, man, if this came on at like a pretty good sized party or like a cookout or something like that, like this whole place would be down. You know what I mean? Like, but not only for the music, because they are fantastic. They kind of, when they first came out and I was super getting into them, the lifestyle was something that I vibed with. Flannel, ton of flannel, big beards, metal kids, that type of stuff. So it was one of those things where, like, yes, the music was very important to me, and they're one of the bands, I think I probably have seen them most of any other band I've ever seen live.
Damn.
Yeah. But like, so they were like a band that I really liked musically, but they were also a band that, like, when you saw them walk on stage, I was like, I kind of like that style.
Yeah.
That they got. They were like metal guys, but like pretty. If that made
Their
sense. Like
aesthetic.
really upkept, like really nice, like long beards, but they
Mhm.
looked presentable. They had nice flannel jeans. You know, they were attractive, most of them. So like, you know, they were just like I would say, no, maybe pretty is not the right word, but they were like a well put together hardcore metal act. And it
Mhm.
was like, oh, I didn't know that could be the same. I was like, I didn't know you could be like kind of clean cut ish
Yeah.
and present yourself as like, yeah, no, I'm a you saw metal kids, and I grew up as a metal kid. Like we just wore black t-shirts and dyed our hair ridiculous colors and like things like that. So when you saw this presentation of them, I was like, wow, these just look like cool, like regular dudes
Yeah.
that just rip and shred and just destroy everyone. And I was like, yeah, man. And I've loved them ever since. They're amazing.
Yeah,
Every time I
I
die.
didn't even know that was honestly didn't even know it was a thing. So props to you, Astrid.
Yeah.
Any opinion on that?
Yeah, I know that's another one that I heard their name, but I never listened to their music. And then I remember like Andy's part of the band, and I was like, it's incredible to think like somebody could be a wrestler like this in AEW, but then be in a band at the same time. So I thought that was pretty
They have
cool.
they have a new album coming out literally like within the next probably month or so too.
Oh.
So he's been doing obviously now
Busy
that he's
boy.
been in AEW for a few years. Yeah.
And I feel like you just described me like I dyed my hair so many times. All my shirts are black. Like, how did you know that, JPJ? Please.
Honestly, I've had my hair
Like-
all different colors.
I will
went-
tell you this. I will tell you this. Freshman year of high school. So this is like 99, 2000, right in the height of all of like Korn, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, all that stuff. I had bleach blonde hair.
Oh, I've dabbled.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that was the thing. So I had bleach blonde hair and I dyed the tips black. That's right. That's what I did.
You
There
had
you go.
frosted
Back
tips.
in the
Well,
day.
you had reverse
I
frosted
had frosted
tips.
tips earlier on, like years before, like in grade school. I had, of course, I had them early on. Joe had the mushroom, the bowl cut. I had it all. I went through the phases.
I had a
it all.
bowl cut too. My mum used to save money by not taking us to a hairdresser, and she used to just go bloop. When I was a kid, until I was about 10 years old, I had like dirty blonde hair. And then as I got older, my hair just went relatively dark. I wouldn't say it's black, it's brown, but my hair went relatively black. But I had like dirty blonde hair as a kid. So I was like bowl cut, dirty blonde, real skinny. I was really skinny when I was a kid, like tiny, tiny skinny. But I've had bleach blonde hair, I've had blue hair, I've had purple hair, I've had pink hair. I've done. It's very expressive to like dye your hair.
Yeah, because I started when Decode came out. I wanted my hair red like Haley's,
Like
and I
Fire
went from
Engine Red.
Yeah, I wanted the whole red, and I look really pale. So my mom was like, "That doesn't help."
Mhm.
And then I remember I had it like the tips were black, and I used to have it like that when I used to work in kind of like Disney area. And then I remember I had it all black, and then that's when I looked like the palest. It looked terrible on me. And I had blonde. My dad likes it when I had the blonde. I had a picture. He's always like, "Go back to blonde." I was like, "No, but it's terrible because I feel like I can't keep my hair like this, like curly."
Mhm.
And then I had it red, and I kept it red ever since. But I feel like I played around a little bit with everything. But then yeah, all my shirts are black. And I used to be scared of Hot Topic, but now I go to Hot Topic, I feel like every weekend. So, you know, I kind of grew up into it. And it's like funny to see, like, a lot of people don't think about it like about me like this, but I'm like, that's what I listen to all the time. It's all like, I'm like, it's kind of like screamo stuff, I would say, and then alternative and punk, all that stuff, like Mayday Parade. Like I mentioned, Go Radio was another one that I listened to. With Carolina,
Ooh, all right.
Hey Monday, it's another one that
Oh
I
my
really
god!
love.
Hey
I love
Monday! Oh
Monday.
my god!
I remember Hey Monday. I remember Hey
I
I'm
love
Monday.
coming.
Cassidy.
I'm coming.
I think
Now
Paris,
she ended up on one of the Voice. Was she on one
yeah,
of those
Was
shows?
she?
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah,
So
she
she
ended
did
up
a
like going
country
decently
album.
far, right?
She did a
Yeah,
country album?
yeah. She has one or two now, I believe, or an EP, if
Whoa!
I'm not mistaken. So you should definitely listen to it. I'll definitely give you a song title later for that.
Whoa! Didn't know
But yeah,
that.
Hey Monday is another one. Paris is another one that I really like.
Oh, I
enjoy a
love
lot
Paris.
too.
I love
My House.
Paris. My house. I think it's time to
Yeah.
get out. Paris
Yeah.
are a great band, like truly great. Their latest album I didn't like fall in love with like I had with their Saint Patrick. What a song! It's
Yeah, that's another one that I had.
Fire. Fire's a great song. They have Paris is a really they're my god. They've kind of evolved a little bit more into like a dance rock, I would say. They have like a bit more of a beat to them. I like dance rock music, by the way. I think it's really interesting. I don't love it all, but it's fascinating how it happens, because you have like a beat that kind of builds, and then you think it would be a drop because it builds like a dance song, and then it drops, but it's like heavy, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, well, this is so like
a bass drum.
yeah, like it's so weird, because usually you'd have, you know, in a dance song you'd have, you know, boom, 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 and then it builds, and then it's bum, 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 you know, but it's like comes into like this rock breakdown thing. It's cool. I just yeah, I like Paris. Oh, I'm glad you brought up Paris, because they weren't in like that kind of 5 that kind of are in my brain of like, these are the kind of chopped up bits, but Paris is great. But going into my last one, this is, after what I've said, this is probably going to surprise everybody. But as a kid, I'm talking like 8, 9, 10, 11, like these years, probably from like 2003 up until like 2006, 2007, even a little bit later. My favorite like musical act was the Black Eyed Peas. I fucking loved the Black Eyed Peas as a kid. Like ask anybody around me. I would get like the singles on CD. I remember when Don't Funk With My Heart came out, and I used to just play that and start again, play it and start again. I had like a CD player, boom, boom. I know all of those like a lot of their first, well, not their first. I didn't listen to like the stuff before Fergie, but like Ellie Funk and Monkey Business can pretty much recite most of that rap. Like I loved those albums, and then they kind of went like really dancey as opposed to like hip hop, I guess you would say. I don't even really love hip hop music, but I loved the Black Eyed Peas as a kid. I can't even tell you why, because I listen to it now and I'm just like, what the fuck? What was this about? I'm not in love with this anymore. Like, I still, you know, have a good time and I know the words and stuff like that, but I'm like, I mean, other than that, obviously, like when Where Is the Love came out, like that was so huge. Like that was just monstrous. And like Shut Up and all of those kind of songs, like some of their songs are so cheesy. Like Shut Up is a terribly cheesy song. My Humps, what the fuck? Don't Lie. Like these are so like basic vanilla songs, but like they're great. My Humps. I mean, come on. There's no way that there's something comes over your body when My Humps come. Like the lyrics of the My Humps, My Humps, My Humps, My Humps, My Lovely Lady Lumps. Like she's talking about her boobs, and I'm like 9 years old, like woo, like yeah, like I'm singing this song. Like it was just a good. I don't know. I just really loved them as a kid. It was one of those, I can't explain it. I don't understand why, because they're not even that good. And I realize that now with a lot of their songs, but like, I don't know what it was about them, but I loved the Black Eyed Peas, and there was no way I couldn't put them in this list because of just how heavily I loved the Black Eyed Peas as a kid. Kind of embarrassingly. I mean, I'll own it, but whatever. Anything you guys want to add to the Black Eyed Peas, Astrid? I don't know if you ever liked the Black Eyed Peas.
I ever listened to them at least in the school bus. They used to play the radio station that always had them in the mornings. And there was always like one of the guys that would kept dancing, and I kept laughing every time he danced. So every time I hear My Humps, I watch him like dance in my mind, and I start laughing because it takes me back to high school. But yeah, it's one of those songs that it wasn't like my favorites, but I heard it so many times in the morning while I was getting ready for school, and they played the music videos and things like that do like in here. You can't get them out of your mind afterwards.
JPJ, anything you want to add with the Black Eyed Peas?
No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, they were super popular. One of my least favorite songs of all time, though, is Tonight's Gonna Be the Night, or whatever that song is. Good. What's the popular one? Tonight's gonna be a good. Hate that song.
Tonight's gonna be a good night. The feeling.
Yeah, hate it. One of my least favorite songs of all time.
Hell yeah, I like that. With that being
said, though, yeah, you know.
I liked them as a kid. I don't know what it was.
I did like Where Is the Love, though. I remember vividly.
That's another song, JPJ, that comes out now, and it kind of, you're like, whoa, this is still relevant in 2021. Like the lyrics of that song. That song was huge. That song was
that was a big song.
That was like their comeback too, because they had like songs, like they were a group before Fergie, which a lot of people don't really realize. I know they don't have Fergie anymore. I think they're still releasing music from my understanding, because Fergie's off doing Fergie things, as we know. That TikTok of her doing a cartwheel going, oh,
Oh yes, I did
It's
see
like
that
the
one.
funniest
I did see
thing
that.
in the world. So yeah, Fergie's doing Fergie things, but they were a group before Fergie. But like, Where Is the Love was like, do you? Here's some Black Eyed Peas knowledge for you. Before that song came out, they had a song with Macy Gray, and it was everyone go listen to it. It's from like 2001. Macy Gray, I know that's a reference that we probably none of us would think that would come out of my mouth, but yes, Macy Gray. I just remember her in an episode of That's So Raven. Anyway, yeah, Black Eyed Peas. That was my last one. I couldn't not put them in there. There's a few others that come to my brain, but Black Eyed Peas had to go in here. I couldn't go a whole thing without at least acknowledging the Black Eyed Peas. But anyway, your last one, Astrid. It's probably not the Black Eyed Peas.
No. Mine's gonna be a little bit shocking after the bands I've mentioned. But even though I was gonna mention Taylor Swift because she's one of my top ones, but I feel like everybody knows Taylor Swift. I need to talk about somebody else. Before there was Taylor, there was Hilary Duff for me.
Oh, Hilary Duff!
Oh,
yes,
Hilary Duff.
I loved Hilary. Because obviously Lizzie McGuire. We loved Lizzie McGuire. Are you and me around the same age? I'm 25, Astrid.
Yeah, I'm 30.
Yeah, so we're like we watched Lizzie McGuire.
I'm the old guy.
Hilary Duff was the shit at one stage. Like she was she was Disney's golden girl.
Oh yeah.
She was the Disney girl. Like that had remember when Why Not came out and I was just like, so Yesterday, I mean, Wake Up, all of these. I mean, Come Clean. Oh my god.
Come Clean.
I feel like someone for me who's a little older, I feel like Hilary Duff was like the first major Disney girl. Right?
Yeah.
She was.
And then
it was
she was like the first one, Lizzie McGuire,
Mm-hmm.
and then later, obviously, like Hannah Montana. Like you had
Miley
all
was
these...
their girl for a little while, but like well, for at least from my understanding, Hilary was, wasn't she?
Yeah,
like
she said in an interview that at first, she was the one that went from being an actress to the singer, and she said like back then she was not accepted as a singer because she was an actress first. But she's like afterwards, she's like, look at the Disney kids now; they're all singers, actors, and dancers. Like you had to be that triple threat being at Disney. So she's like, I feel like I started that kind of trend of going on at Disney. And she was always like my person because growing up in Puerto Rico, obviously my native language is Spanish. But then we always watched Disney movies, Disney Channel. It was Disney everything. So I grew up listening to her music, and her album was one of the first albums I ever bought with my own money. So I would never forget that.
Metamorphosis,
and the remixes album too, both of them. Those were my first albums that I ever bought. And her and like I want to like cheat in this part, but Avril Lavigne and Ashley Simpson, those were like my girls that I listened to. Even when I was moving here, like on the plane, I was listening to Avril Lavigne. I'm with you. So and I was listening to Ashley Simpson. Like it was Christmas time.
To that.
Avril Lavigne.
I watched that I'm With You music video less than an hour.
Nobody's Home by Avril Lavigne is a top tier song. Like I love that. Early Avril is like there's nothing like it. There's nothing. Ashley Simpson too. Ashley Simpson, like Lala, Boyfriend, all great songs, and they're like a little bit. They're pop music, but they've got a little bit of an edge to them in the sense of like mainstream pop.
I feel like we got people highlighted Jessica because of her voice, but I loved Ashley's songwriting. I love her lyrics because it wasn't anything like Jessica. I was the total opposite of her.
Well,
and
Ashley,
for Christmas,
it's so crazy because Ashley was like her career got ruined by that SNL thing with the lip syncing, and she just kind of dipped. So it's crazy. But Jessica was like the blonde bombshell, you know what I mean? Like she was like the coined at one stage. She was like the next Britney. Never really worked out really that well, but Ashley was very different to Britney. Jessica, sorry.
Yeah, I remember like my grandma gave me like her album autobiography for Christmas, so I got to open it beforehand because I was moving to the US, so I didn't have Christmas in Puerto Rico like usual. And like listening to like Ashley Simpson was something that I had like back then, especially. And like Avril Lavigne was the other one, but Hilary Duff was like my top favorite one, and she's like my first concert here in Florida. I went to Kissimmee and I sang every single song, and my mom was like, dang girl. And I was like, well, we bought a ticket for a reason, right? I came here to sing all the songs with her. And I was really like bummed because her last album, I really enjoyed it, but she never did a tour for it. And I know she has kids and everything, but I was like, I really wanted her to tour for it. I just wanted to see her like as an adult and watch her perform live as an adult because I never got to do that. So I was always like bummed, but I like to be able to see her like in younger now and to like see her in a different kind of way. just like I did with Ashley Simpson, like watching her in the reality show. I feel like I got behind the scenes with her, and like with Ryan Cabrera, that's another reason. Like I know of him because of Ashley, and I met him before too. So there's like those little connections here and there that I've
Yeah.
gotten with them. But I just wanted to cheat on that one. But yeah, but Hilary Duff is my fifth one.
Oh,
Ryan
Hillary is great.
Cabrera marrying Alexa Bliss, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
words collide.
Unbelievable. I see what you did there.
Uh-huh.
I see what you did there. That was a good one.
Anything to add to Hilary Duff, JPJ?
Not much, no.
I was
I
gonna say.
definitely knew who she was. I
Mm.
knew Lizzie McGuire. My sister is 33, 32, I think 33. So she was of the age that like she was a Disney kid like that. So Lizzie McGuire, that type of, she was into that. So definitely, I don't know much about the music side of Hilary Duff. I know her way more for the actress side of Hilary Duff.
And we will add,
yeah.
we talked about Britney's whole thing. Hilary Duff is one of the
Yes.
only kid stars that really didn't have any like
Yeah, nothing ever went.
nastiness happen. It just
Yeah,
kind of grew up.
nothing ever went too bad.
And like
which
stayed
was-
out
which
of the
is good.
spotlight, but still kind of in it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it
I think
was-
I think her mom is probably the reason why she's always so grounded on top of it. Like, even
Oh,
though
is
her
it?
parents are divorced, like her mom has always been her manager and her sisters. So they
Ah.
I feel like they always had like that kind of situation on it. And her kids, I love seeing her with her kids, and now she's married. I forgot her husband's name now.
Yeah.
But I know they
she's
do a lot of music
she's
together.
remarried. It's her second husband, isn't it? Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
I remember that. But yeah, it is cool kind of seeing her do her thing now and just be very. I'm very bummed that the Lizzie McGuire revival is not happening. I'm really bummed about it. To see all these other shows kind of get, I know she wanted a little bit more of an adult style, and Disney were like, mm-mm. But to see like iCarly come back and like that's kind of adult-ish, I would say. Like it's got adult themes. They talk about threesomes on that show. I'm like, Carly Shay, what are you doing? You're a child. Don't do that.
they? That's true.
Yeah. On the revival,
Really?
the revival season of iCarly, Freddie, Carly, and some other girl, like they say the word threesome. And I'm like,
Wow.
what are you doing? You can't be talking about that kind of stuff. But I mean, they're adults. But like, I'm like, no. You're on Nickelodeon. You're meant to be on Nickelodeon making a web show. What are you doing talking about threesomes? But yeah, I'm like, okay, Carly's grown up. So I'm like, I would like to see Lizzie in that kind of same vein. But also Lizzie McGuire, the way it was filmed, the era of that time. I know we could go on a whole tangent about Lizzie and we won't. But like, I'm kind of low-key glad it's not happening because it's very special, that show. I can still watch that show and laugh. So that's a good thing. I love Lizzie McGuire. I really do like Hilary Duff a lot. But JPJ, your last one. I'm sure it's not Hilary Duff. I could be wrong. I don't want to take words out of your mouth, but it might be. Who knows? Maybe he'll throw out Britney or something and really shock us.
Maybe, you never know.
Shania Twain.
No, I went for. We did. We talked about it. Yeah. No, I went for I feel like because maybe it's my age, but I feel like the bands I've mentioned so far, they're not really current bands. There's no current bands. So I went with a band that is one of my favorite bands, but they are still current, very much of the pop punk alternative vein. That's kind of my wheelhouse. That's where I stay. They're a band called The Story So Far. Really, really, really good. They have 4 major studio albums. All 4 of them are like, especially like you guys, obviously like some of you, like Paramore being of the pop punk variety, and like Astrid, you have mentioned a lot of bands in that range. I think this is a band that if you liked pop punk at one point in your life, and maybe you grew out of it or whatever like that, if you listen to them, you would be 100% on board. In my opinion, they are the best pop punk band to come out like in like the 2010s and on. I think they are like that good, that high level of a pop punk band. Terrific live. I've seen them live multiple times. Their first album, at the time, it resonated with me so much because, it's a pop punk album. It's talking about girls breaking up with people and being mean and things like that. And I was going through that in my life in my mid-20s ish. So that album kind of resonated with me, but then they just got better and better and better and better. And their last album that they came out towards the tail end of 2019, it's called Proper Dose, and it's about the lead singer struggles with prescription drugs and things like that. So it's a lot more of a mature adult, like you could tell they grew up and he went through some stuff, but it's still that pop punk story so far feel, just a little more grown up, which for me currently, that grown up mature pop punk style is like, I love it. Like, it's like, yeah, this is still pop punk, but it's a lot more alternative-y and like more chiller and mellow and stuff like that. So they're a band that has really resonated with me, like especially within the last like 5 to 10 years. I've been like really, really, really into them. And I love them. They're one of my all-time favorite bands.
They're in my some of my playlists. I've definitely heard a lot of their music, and it's in that kind of vein that's just kind of like very easy listening for me because it's just like in that world. I don't really have too much else to say other than because I don't really have that much of an opinion on them other than they're in my rotation. Astrid, anything to add to them?
Yeah, same thing. I've never heard about them, but I never listened to their songs, so I don't have them on my playlist. I know I have like a little bit of like variety because I have people like I have for like Mayday, and then I have Paramore, and then I have like 303 over here, and then I have this over there.
303.
But it's all the music from Warped that we get over here. So just like you listen to everybody. So I have a little bit of everything, but that's one of those that I don't have on my playlist.
Yeah. It's cool. It's so cool to hear our kind of vibes with music and just how we kind of meet in the middle with some things, and some things are like we don't listen to that, and it's cool like that. Any honorable mentions you want to throw in just quickly, feel free to do so. I have to say Poppy, because Poppy is fucking fantastic, and she sings. She's dropping some heavy fucking shit, by the way.
Yeah, dude.
Poppy goes hard with some stuff. Like, she's doing some stuff. And to see where if you're Poppy fans, you would know she used to sing like bubblegum pop music, and then she's moved into like this space. And a lot of her music is like, how is it that you can go from like heavy shit in the same song and then sing a pop melody? It's so cool to hear. I love that kind of stuff. Poppy is a huge honorable mention of mine because my golly, like, she is just like, some of her music is very far out there, and I understand. But my favorite song of Poppy's is called Concrete. It is so damn good. I really like Poppy, so I'll throw quickly Poppy in there. Astrid, any mentions you just want to say before we wrap up?
Just to cheat a little bit, just to mention like a little bit of the people that I've loved. I just can't put them all like in my top 5, but I had to look at my playlist so I don't miss anybody. Like Boys Like Girls, another one that I listen to a lot.
That Boston band right there.
Yeah. The Cab is another one that I had. The White Tie Affair. I only like 2 other songs, but I really enjoy them too. Metro Station, I kind of like.
Oh, that's Miley Cyrus's brother, right?
Yeah, and
Metro Station.
yeah, and the other one, forgot her co-star, Musso.
Mitchell Musso's brother. Yeah.
I had like Cobra Starship. Did I Remember? It's another one that I found a lot of.
Fall Out Boy, big time.
Yeah, and Fall Out Boy when they first started, and even now. Just to give like a little bit of how I have my playlist all over.
Shout out to Panic at the Disco, by the way.
Yeah. Panic at the Disco is another one that I have.
My Chemical Romance. Now you're just getting me started.
Oh, now you're like, I was into like Census Fail, if you heard of them, Under Oath, Silverstein, some of the heavier
Sleeping
stuff.
with Sirens.
Sleeping with Sirens was really good. Yeah. Bring Me the Horizon.
Oh my God, they would nearly made it into my top 5. Bring Me the Horizon, but this is really gonna.
They changed a lot though. Like, if you hear their
and I like their newer stuff better.
Yeah.
It's more of my vibe. They have more of like a dancey rock feel now, and I really dig that.
Yes, they definitely changed a lot. It's still good though. It's still pretty good.
Their last album,
their early
they had a
stuff
song
is, like,
with Baby
scary.
Metal. Like, everyone, you know who Baby Metal is, right? Like, they're like the Japanese girls that sing heavy metal music. They have a song called Kingslayer with Bring Me the Horizon, and
I did not know that. I gotta
you need to. It's intense. Like, it's very like.
Add that one for the homework.
Add that one for the homework. Trust me, we've got a lot of homework to do. But JPJ, any you want to add before we wrap up?
Yeah. So the album that I've been rolling with for like the last month or so. So there's a band called Turnstile. All one word, Turnstile. and they just released, and they have a couple albums. They're all good, but they just released their newest album about a month ago. It's called Glow On. I think everybody should go listen to that album. That's just been like,
Damn.
I'm the type of person that when I get into an album, it's the only thing I listen to for like a month straight. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to start dabbling in with other things. Like I've only, like when I'm in the car driving to work and driving home every day for like literally almost the last 3 weeks a month, it's Glow On by Turnstile. So that's kind of I've liked them for a long time, but their new album is like really, really good. So I would tell everyone to go give that one a listen. It's a little bit of everything for everyone on there. They're a little different. They're like aggressively groovy.
Ooh.
That's how I would.
That sounds like my kind of vibe.
Explain them. Aggressively groovy.
I like that.
So
I like
yeah,
that.
go check them out. They're really good.
Well, this has been fun to talk about music for nearly 2 hours. We've been talking about music, and I'm not. We could probably do 2 more hours on music if we really freaking tried. I don't think it's very hard to talk about music because now I'm just like, oh, but what about this person and this band and this artist and but in the interest of everybody listening, we will wrap things up. Astrid, thank you for hanging out with us for this last couple of hours. It's been a lot of fun to have. You're our first guest on this show, so.
No, I didn't realize that. I was listening to it. I'm like, wait, am I the first one?
Yeah, first guest. First guest. This is your chance to put yourself over, plug your shit, and all that stuff. The floor is yours. Plug away, my friend.
Well, I make mostly I do is everything with Love Wrestling. So I would talk about NXT on Tuesdays. So whenever you're live on Tuesdays, we discuss it. Sometimes I'm on the Saturday like reacts. But aside from that, I do a lot of like book stuff. So you're into books. I do a lot of book reviews and book spotlights and things like that. So my link is always on my Twitter. So you can follow me on those social medias that I have when it comes to the book stuff. And on my Twitter, Astrid Pizarro, when I'm not, with Love Wrestling or promoting Love Wrestling in some kind of way. Always talking about like my music and sharing my music stuff in there. And I like horror movies too. So I know that's another thing that a lot of people.
And it's spooky season. It's spooky season.
It's spooky season.
Yep. And yeah, anything like books, horror movies, Disney, I love a lot too. So anything like that, I'm off to talking about any one of those topics that I really love. So if you guys, anybody that wants to talk about it, I'm free to talk about it anytime.
That's good to know. We have Astrid's handle on the screen, by the way, underneath Astrid, just down there, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube. But we'll leave all her stuff in the description below, whether you're listening on audio or video. JPJ, anything cool coming up for you that you need to talk about?
Well, I don't know if it'll be this week, but I think Astrid is going to be coming on to a future episode of Between Two Beards soon. Ooh. So I'm looking forward to
with that beard, Astrid? Wow.
I know. We're going to have to like superimpose one on her or something,
Wear a beard.
We've had Spencer on. Yeah, we'll be fun.
Single out Spencer. Say he doesn't have a beard. What a little idiot. Spencer.
I mean, come on.
I mean, at least it helps with the budget if I show up, right?
True.
I hope.
Hey, come on. But yeah, no, so I'm looking forward to that. But no, just the typical, you can check out my stuff on Love Wrestling. Like we all got some really good stuff on there. And then you and I doing this thing every Thursday. So yeah, man, I'm just enjoying life, having fun, chatting about all sorts of stuff with good people.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
we're having a good time. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter. My handle's up there. I did say in the last episode of The Legacy of, but for anyone that didn't watch, next week's episode of The Legacy of is on Victoria, and it is the season finale. It'll be the last episode of 2021. We'll return in January with new episodes, maybe a little bit of a new feel, maybe a little bit of a new look. Legacy of might be growing a little bit more than you could even expect. But I'll still be hanging around on Love Wrestling. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere from Love Wrestling. I still have a few little content drops that I'm going to do in between that I need to talk about with Spencer. Rough. But I'll still appear when I can and stuff like that. But it is getting to the busy time of year just for my line of work. So I'm less available in December because it's Christmas time. I work in retail. It is what it is. It's my birthday next month. I've got a wedding to go to next month. So I'm pretty flat out for the next couple of months just in my own personal life. But of course, you can hang out with me on Twitch, twitch.tv/JoshRobinson00. JPJ is a regular in my chat at this stage. I always see him pop in. He usually pops in.
I do pop in quite often. Yeah.
Playing universe mode or some bullshit. I'm usually doing some bullshit over on Twitch. It's truly the place where I am most like myself, where I just don't give two fucks. And it's great. I love it. I love it to bits. So hang out with me on Twitch. Other than that, this show comes out, of course, as you know, every single Thursday. If you're watching on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, all that, ring the bell, all of that kind of good stuff. Give this podcast 5 stars on iTunes. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, that'd be nice too. That'd be nice. Yeah.
Yep.
That's about everything.
You should definitely do that.
Yeah, do that kind of stuff. You know me at this point. I'm terrible at outros. I'm great at everything else. But I'm terrible at outros. So usually this is where I just say, bye. But everyone, have a nice day. I love you all very much. We'll see you next week. See you later.